Hey everyone, this is Nick on Control Nick, and today we're going to learn the Excel function called XLOOKUP. Similar to HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP will give you a robust tool set to be able to pull unique values based off of cell references. Today I have a step-by-step to show you what you do to use XLOOKUP, as well as a couple of examples that I'll go through with you so that you can see the different use cases by using XLOOKUP. Okay. So as you can see, we have three different tabs set up for you: XLOOKUP Steps, XLOOKUP Example 1, and XLOOKUP Example 2. Example 1 is going to be much simpler, but it's going to give you the bare bones of how do you actually use XLOOKUP, what are the different references you use, and so forth. And then Example 2 is going to be a little more complicated, but it's also going to show you the versatility of using this functionality whenever you're doing different tasks and jobs. So in the first tab, we have XLOOKUP Steps, and that's just me writing out 4 simple steps for you to use XLOOKUP. Again, it's a very simple function, and you'll start to realize that as we go through each of the steps of this tutorial. So just to verbalize it a little bit, XLOOKUP formula step by step. We have step 1, which is reference the unique value you wish to find. Step 2 is once you reference that value, you then reference the list or the array you wish to match with the unique value. Step 3 is you'll reference the list you then wish to pull data from based off of that unique value. Step 4 is closing out the XLOOKUP formula. So step 4 is just a closer, and the first 3 steps are actually the main courses of action you'll have to take in XLOOKUP. So in this first example, you have a tab that shows a very simple spreadsheet that shows fruit numbers referencing a fruit name, which you can see below here. So for example, if you want to use an XLOOKUP, you can do so in order to pull a specific fruit name based off of a fruit number that you have in mind. So let's say you want to pull strawberry in Excel using XLOOKUP based off the number value 3, because that's considered the unique value or unique ID associated with that fruit name. So what I'm going to do is I'll start with XLOOKUP and start that formula. And then it's going to first ask you for the lookup value. So right now, as you can see in the table, you have 3 as the unique ID for strawberry. So I would type in the number 3. And then what you need to do next is show, okay, where are you pulling 3 from? Which list? Since we have a very short list, a small list here, it's easy enough to just drag it down and say this is the full reference you want to use. Once you've referenced your full list, you just do comma, or some if you might be doing semicolon to get to the next step in the formula, which is the return array, meaning what value do you want to return back to you? And since you want to have the fruit name returned back to you, you would do the same thing as step 2, being that you would just drag the full list as a reference. Last step, again, considering what we showed in the first tab, is you would close the formula out by closing it with the parentheses and then click enter. Once you do so, you can already see that it's pulling strawberry as the fruit name because you've entered the number 3 in here. And again, that number 3 is pulling from your reference list. So that lookup value is going to be a unique value that you're going to be pulling from there. Now, what's really cool about XLOOKUP is you can change that value to however you'd like, let's say to the number 2 instead, and it's going to then change the reference that it pulls. Meaning now that you typed in number 2 into the formula bar, you can now see that pair is being pulled. So although this is a way to do it for XLOOKUP, I would say another trick that I actually like to use is just typing in a number manually if I know exactly what unique value that I need to pull for. So for example, let's use this yellow cell in reference A2. So I'm just going to put the number 2 over here. And what we're actually going to do is in our XLOOKUP formula, although we have number 2 selected, that's a hard-coded formula that's not going to change. But what you can actually do is delete this number 2 and instead make a reference to a specific cell. So again, I'm referencing A2 over here. What you'll notice is when I close out the formula again, it's still going to show pair. Again, because you're still referencing the same unique value that you're going to pull. So what makes this much nicer now is that if I type in 1 or 2 or 3, you can see that the formula continues to update with exactly what you're looking for, but now it's much quicker because you can quickly type into a cell. So just in summary, quite simple, right? All you have to do is start the formula, put in the unique value or reference that you want to pull for. In the next step, you put in the specific list or array where that unique value can be pulled from. And in the last step, all you have to do is create the full list of where the unique values information is going to be pulled. So again, we have 5 being referenced in cell A2. We have B5 through B9, which is this red coloring here, being this is the unique value that you want to reference for that list. And then final step is C5 through C9, being this is exactly the data I want to pull for that unique value. One thing that's really important to consider is you always want to make sure the list or the array is aligned. Point in reference here, as you can see, I'm moving around the list or the array. If I move this up 1, so that B5 to B9 is working with C4 to C8, it's going to align itself with the number of rows it's working with. Just so that makes sense a little bit more, as you can see when I press enter now that I have from fruit name to banana selected, you can see that the number 5, which should be grape, is actually pulling banana. That's because this list is pulled up 1. So you always want to make sure that your list arrays are parallel with each other. So when I press enter again after adjusting the list array, it pulls the right data for you. Now let's actually go to a little more complicated example, which is example number 2, but it's a little more realistic example and hopefully an example that can actually help you in your day-to-day job when you're working with different tasks or analysis tools. So again, we're going to be using the exact same setup, we're just working with it a little bit differently. Now we're in example 2 of this workbook. And in example 2, we have a table over to the right, which is columns I through N. And this is a very long list. So unlike example 1, where it was just a short, small table with 5 different references, now we have multiple hundreds of data. It's a large data set that we need to pull quickly and easily. And the purpose of this exercise is we're going to show the top 10 and bottom 10 profit-making customers by using XLOOKUP. So just to go through this very quickly for you, what I've created is these columns here, 6 columns in total. Column I, just a randomly generated list of unique customer names. Column J are all the different customer numbers that are associated with these names. Columns K, L, and M are how are these customers performing with revenue, cost, and profit, whatever that might be. And then lastly, column N, which is what we're going to be basing this exercise off of, is the ranking based off of profit. Number 1 in rank means they've made the most profit for us, where the bottom customer has made the least profit for us. So what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to just start in the top 10 customer table. And I'm going to create an Excel lookup formula, just like in example 1. However, here, what I want is starting off with the number 1 customer in terms of profitability. So what I'm going to do is, rather than just typing in 1 like we did in the beginning, I'm just going to automatically reference the cell in B2 because that has the top customer number already there that I want to pull. I know exactly what I want to pull as a reference. Comma. Next thing I'm going to do is where am I pulling that 1 from? What do I want to reference from the list? Again, that's going to be the ranking that we want to find for profitability. So we want to find the number 1 customer of ranking for profitability, which is using column N. Lastly, right now, we're just going based off of the column numbers. Or I'm sorry, not the column numbers. We're going off of the column names that I've listed here. So we're just going to start with the customer name. Again, I want this table to pull all the information for these top 10 customers. It doesn't just have to be profitability. So I'm going to select column I because that's the customer name that I want to pull who's number 1 in rankings. Then we'll close out the formula. You can see already Bold Networks pulls. They are the number 1 customer for us in whatever period of time that we're looking at this information. Now, I still want to pull 4 more pieces of information for them so I get the full gist of them, which is going to be their customer number, their revenue that they've provided us, the cost that it takes to maintain that customer, for example, and then the profit that they've given us. Now, in order to do that, we want to just lock some cells so it's very quick for us to use XLOOKUP. Now, if I were to just copy over the formula, you can see it starts pulling an error, and that's because we're not locking cells. So as you can see, if I click into this formula bar, everything's being dragged over. Where I was originally referencing the number 1 is now referencing the cell next to it because we didn't lock the cell. The same thing goes with the columns over here to the right. So we need to adjust that slightly before we do the full picture for this table. So what I'm going to do is go back to our formula, and I'll start off with locking only so that we can drag down by rows. So that would be, on my keyboard, it's F4. So you click F4 once, you see it gets those dollar signs. That's going to fully lock so that no matter how I copy the formula, it's going to stick to this cell. We don't want that. We want to go 1 more time, 2 more times. So the first time is going to lock the column movement. Second time is going to lock the cells or the rows. Then we want to make sure when we drag over, we don't also drag over those columns, right? So the easy thing with selecting the full column here is you only have to lock once. You can see if I press F4 again, it unlocks. And that's because it's full column, so they can only go one way, which is left and right. So I'm going to lock those, and same thing with column I. I'm going to lock those as well. Our formula should be good to go. I'm going to click enter again, and then I'm just going to drag over. Now, you'll see that bold networks is going to be across the board still because we still need to just adjust the columns. So that's where the easy thing to do is now that I have the customer name and I want the customer number for XLOOKUP, what I'm going to do is say, okay, now that we have this column selected, I actually don't want the retrieving information column to be I anymore. I actually want it to be J because it's customer number. So I'm just going to drag my reference over to 1 or over to J. You can see that will then adjust the customer number. And you can very easily just click in and do the same thing. Now I want revenue, so I'm going to pull from customer name over. Same thing with cost, just dragging it over. And then lastly, same thing with profit. Now you can see we have bold networks. They're our number 1 customer, which is unique customer number 279. They've generated $99,000 or whatever currency in revenue, and they've cost only $17,600, which means they have a total profit of $82,000. So they're a very strong customer for us. They're number 1, but we want the top 10. However, since we've preset ourselves up for an easy Excel lookup for all of this, remember now that our reference cell here, or the lookup value, has been hard-coded to only be dragged down for movement and not for columns, all we need to do is hover over all cells here, and then you can drag down this formula. Now everything pulls for our top 10 customers. So now that we've created this XLOOKUP for the top 10 customers, you've already pre-locked your cells so that you can drag it down easily. It means you can also just copy and paste easily for any values that you want to pull for. So for example, I've highlighted Elite Capital. Doesn't matter where, as long as it's all of the columns that you just want to bring down to the bottom 10. But let's say Elite Capital, customer name through profitability, has been already created for the XLOOKUP formula. I'm going to Control C to copy, and I'm just going to highlight the full table here because, again, the formula has already been pre-locked in all the cells. We're good to go to just Control V and paste in. That's actually it. So once again, I just want to go through the steps that we used, and I hope it's a little bit easier now to familiarize yourself with each of these. Again, step 1, you're going to reference the unique value that you want to pull for yourself. Once you know that unique value, step 2, you're going to reference the list that you wish to match with the unique value. And then in step 3, you're going to again reference a list, but this is going to be the list that's going to be pulling the information that you need for that unique value. Step 4 is then closing it out. That was actually it. Thank you very much for taking a look at the video, and please let me know if you have any questions down at the comment section. It'd be great if you would like and subscribe to the video if you want to see more. And please also take a look at the attached Excel file that I brought with this video also. You can see that below the video. And you have the Excel file as your own use in case you want to try to replicate what we had just shown. So thanks again for watching and have a great day. Bye.